Thank you so much for choosing to listen to Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. I'm Kristen Dees, the founder of Catalyst Consulting, a business consulting agency that is passionate about helping small businesses thrive. The goal of this podcast is to connect entrepreneurs with experts in a variety of industries that support small business owners in order to provide you with helpful tips, resources, and some entrepreneurship inspiration. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. My guest today is Ceci Garrett. I'm very excited. We connected and then actually found out that we live very close to each other. So that's how connections are made. That's one of my favorite things about networking and stuff. So super excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining me. Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about you as a human being. Where are you from? What are your hobbies? All that good stuff.
Well, as you mentioned, we live not terribly far apart from each other, but I'm actually what I like to call a transplanted Washingtonian. So I actually grew up just outside of Washington, D.C., and so I now live in Central Washington. I have a large blended family. So my husband and I both had been married previously and had kids. So when we got married, we were automatically a family of 7, and we had 2 more. So now we have this large extended family, grandkids, pets, all the craziness. Non-work stuff. Let's see. I feel like I'm always working.
I know. This is
really, really hard on this. So one of my things that I made friendship bracelets a lot when I was in middle school, and I didn't really feel the desire to do that as an adult, but found out that in fact, the process of making friendship bracelets is very similar to macrame. And so you'll notice my macrame, I actually made that. That was one of my personal self-care hobbies. And then my other thing recently is Legos. So they are not here, but I do have, I've done the Winnie the Pooh treehouse, which is super cool. And I'm currently working on a typewriter, which I'm geeking out a little bit on it. It's like 2,500 pieces, and it is really challenging. Lego actually designates it as rated for ages 18 and up, and it really does have some really intricate, like you have to work really hard to get things just right. But so those are like my big things. I like being outside, but I'm not athletic. So
yeah, no, I think that's fine. Yeah. I would not classify myself as super athletic, but I like the outdoors. I like to be outside in the sunshine doing some sort of activity usually. So yeah, no, it's awesome. What's a fun fact about you? Can you think of anything else besides the Legos thing is very cool, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm learning to be a geek. A fun fact. Well, okay, so this is kind of one of those where some people already know this about me. They do any Google search, but it's always a fun thing because I walk into this conversation more often than not. People will talk about reality TV. I think because it's a cultural thing anymore, and from time to time we get that whole, I don't know why anyone would ever be on reality TV, and then I have to pause and go, I've been on reality TV twice. So there's your fun fact. I've been on reality TV twice. Those who are really, really interested, they can Google my name and they'll figure out what it is.
Ooh,
but
I have homework now for after the episode. That's cool. I actually met somebody that was on The Biggest Loser the other day. She was doing my hair.
Is it the gal from Spokane? Yeah, there was a gal from Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. She was doing my hair. She like made a couple of references to it. And then I was like, what? And then she's like, yeah, so on, Biggest Loser. And I was like, what? So then after I Googled, obviously, because, people say stuff sometimes. I was like, is this real? And I was like, oh no, it's like legit. She was the first female winner of The Biggest Loser also.
Yep. So, I know exactly who you're talking about. I've never met her, but I did know when it was on, we watched, and I know that she's a Spokane native. So yeah, it was really cool.
But yeah, just talking about the experience was nuts. I was like, that's like a whole different level. But anyway, so no, that's awesome. The Lego stuff is super fun. I've been trying to figure out things like that too, that it's almost like like the Zen self-care activities, because I have a really hard time with I'm a minimalist at this point in my life. So it's hard for me to do crafts and create things that I'm not also going to use because it feels wasteful for whatever reason. That's probably something a therapist could unpack for me.
We can talk
but yeah, we can when we're not recording. But yeah, so it's just like one of those things because I've done a lot of those the diamond dot and puzzle kind of stuff, but I prefer to do things where I can either make the craft and give it to somebody. My best friend and I started painting rocks. So we'll cool. do, hide rocks and stuff. That it's but it gives you the Zen, creating something. And then it also gives me the adventure outdoors thing. And then it's someone else gets to find it. So it's a fun surprise. Anyway, so that's where I'm currently at in my crafting self-care journey. But yeah, so tell us a little bit more about what you do for work. What do you do for helping entrepreneurs and all that?
Well, so I'm in the process of credentialing as a Christian life coach, and really developing a membership where we're focusing on accountability. In my other professional endeavors, I'm a clinical social worker, but I'm an independent private practice. I work from home. I can literally not leave my house for 5 days because everybody comes to me.
Hmm.
And that's great in many ways, but it also challenged me, not in the sense of that there were specific skills that I lacked, but when I was having a bad day, I didn't have anyone to share it with. When I had a really good day, I had nobody to celebrate with. And there were things I was finding that I had done really well doing administratively behind the scenes when I had been an employee for somebody else that I suddenly was struggling to do, and I couldn't understand it. And recognize that when I had accountability, so somebody who is checking in, did you do it? What's happening? What's the holdup? Just, doing that, creating a boss that wasn't a boss and having that accountability. And so that's what I'm doing now is I'm working with Christian women who are in solopreneur or kind of remote contract jobs where they're working from home and they don't have that over the shoulder accountability of a boss or supervisor, and helping them come into a group where we can hold each other accountable, and where we're choosing the hard parts that we're struggling with.
No, it's nice. Yeah, because I think it's a very common, like I've met with a few different people over the years where they have that problem. They're like, I don't know, I don't know how to get things done when I don't have like other people telling me to do the stuff, or enforce deadlines. And also creating systems and processes. They're like, I thought that I was organized and structured until I started my own business and then was like, okay, but like, okay, I don't think I am organized anymore. And so like little things like that, where just having other people kind of help you with that process is so helpful. Like I need that a lot too. That's why I have a coach and mentors and so that just help me with the like, okay, you got to do this thing. Like you told this person that you were going to do it. So that's real somehow.
Yeah, and it's
Yep.
interesting because I think in my experiences, so I've had, I'm not young anymore. I'd like to think I am, but I have as many years in the workforce as I did in education as a child. So in my experiences, there is this tendency to do really well with that, and I've met a couple people who really are very self-directed, like, and I've always been kind of wowed by them and thought, I'm somehow broken that I'm not that way. And there are, in fact, some things that I do really, really well in seasons. And again, why? I don't completely know. But I do know, what I found over the past year is, as I went into private practice, is that when I told other people I was going to do something by another date, if I told enough people, those were things that got done. Even if they were hard, even if they were scary, even if it was a ton of training to get to a point where I could do them, unless they really were things I needed to take off my plate, but I had to have somebody else involved. And so it's kind of that challenge to being in the solo business. And I think solo business is a great model for many, many people, especially if you're neurodivergent. If you have a trauma background, you can have some flexibility that traditional workplaces don't offer to take care of yourself and be mentally well, but you need those other people. And it's, our brains are wired that way. We have mirror neurons. My mirror neurons are not going to light up until I see somebody else doing the same thing. And so getting past the idea that there are just people who are really good at this and everybody else is broken is not the case. We're designed for those relationships. And when we're doing it alone, when we're doing solo business, we're going to have to find a coach, an accountability group, a social network even, to be that other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's been super important for me, like in my business ownership journey, is just like surrounding myself with other business owners and entrepreneurs who think the same, or at least have similar goals, because there's a different level of support that you get from people who are in it as well, than you do from people, friends and family that aren't business owners, that don't understand the struggle, because they're like, just get a job. I don't know why you're doing this to yourself. I'm like, because I don't want to. I don't want to work for
Or
anyone
like
else
me,
anymore. Yeah.
because nobody is doing what I'm doing. That's been the
Yeah.
hardest part is, there are some people in solo businesses where they're really doing something that's very much something, financial advisors. Everybody has their personality, their take, but there's a roadmap. there's, certifications, but then you get some of us who really are trailblazing. And, that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about seeing it a little differently and saying, I think I can do it better. And sometimes that means that you're not going to find somebody. Like, that's been one of the hardest things in my professional journey, is being pigeonholed into what other people are doing, but they're not doing what I'm doing. And there's not always a clear roadmap. And so I need accountability, because when I fail, when things don't go well, I don't want to be stuck on, hey, I failed. I need to be stuck on, I tried. And what do I do now? How do I get back up and try again? What do I do differently?
Yeah, I started describing that experience for myself as basically like the scientific theory. So like, it's impossible theoretically, right? Like, or at least unlikely that you're just going to go gangbusters out of the gate first try. Nothing's going to go wrong. It's all going to go perfect. You're going to test something. It's going to fail in some way probably. And then you're going to be like, oh, okay, that didn't work. So let me try it again and let me modify, hopefully, something. Like, if you just keep doing it over and over again, that's a whole different problem. But yeah, it's like,
we
like
have a term for that. We
inventors.
call it insanity.
Yes, yeah, 100%. But yeah, that's what inventors and scientists and anybody in those kind of trailblazers in math, science, whatever, physics, they're like, it should have worked, but it didn't because of these things. So let me tweak this stuff. And then eventually we get the light bulb or Wi-Fi, whatever the thing is. It did not happen the first time. So I've been trying to like give that to myself a little bit more too, where it's like, I'm still doing something, because I feel like the word failure has such a negative connotation. And there are a lot of inspirational quotes around failing, like fail forward, learn from your mistakes, blah, blah, blah. But it's not that something went wrong. It's a part of the process. And so I've been trying to like redo that a little bit for myself, because it can be too much sometimes. And like every time you do a launch or you try a new program and it doesn't sell out or it doesn't go the way you think it's going to. That's happened to me recently a few times where I'm like, why don't I have 100 people in this? And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm bad at what I'm doing or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, it's this one specific piece that you need. That's the missing piece over and over again. But it takes trying the things to be like, oh, yeah. Okay, I need better marketing. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I rabbit trailed there for a minute, but
no, it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's tough. It gets really tough if you don't have other people around you that are like, no, dude, like you're on the right track. You have what you're doing is good. The product that you're providing, the service you're providing is valuable. People will need what you have. Keep going. And you're like, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, because it is. I mean, I think there's probably evolutionary value in coding failure negatively. But the reality is, that's what sets aside entrepreneurs and, engineers and inventors and all of those, is that there's this, okay, but just because this didn't work doesn't mean that what I'm doing. I mean, like, we think of Edison, how many times did he try before he got the right filament? Well, what if after 100 times he gave up? Well, who knows how long it would have taken for the light bulb?
Yeah.
And my other world is therapeutic, and we talk about this all the time. Okay, so instead of coding a bad experience as failure on your part, of this is simply another way that doesn't work optimally, and so now instead of coding it negatively, we're going to go, okay, so what haven't I tried? What seems like something I could try? Maybe it's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to try it anyways. And really, that translates into solopreneurship. Of the reality of success is often lined with a road of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
We left because we didn't fit into the commercial workplace or the private sector or nonprofit sector, but our path is going to be marked with lots of discomfort. And if we don't believe that, we probably should go back to finding a job.
Yeah. Yeah, because
finding maybe a better fit for our jobs, but we're going to have to be okay with the day when we wake up, we read the emails, and somebody comes back and says, like, I can't believe you thought this was worth anything.
Yeah.
And to not internalize that of I'm a failure, but okay, so what actually didn't work and what do I need to work on?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I think kept me from trying to go as big as I actually want to go, because I'm scared of what happens when people start overtly talking crap about what I'm doing, or someone sends me an email back to one of my weekly emails. It's like, why are you sending me this stuff? This isn't valuable. You don't know what you're talking about, whatever it is, because it's inevitable. The bigger you get at anything, the more haters you're going to have, and they're going to be super vocal about it. So that was like one of the things that I was like, I had to prepare myself and be comfortable with as much as I can be. to have people do that because it's scary. Like the rejection thing of like having people, someone who doesn't even know you, just like vomit
Oh yeah.
junk all over your stuff. I'm like, so I think that was in my way for a while. And then once I kind of recognized that that was a part of it and the imposter syndrome that lives in my poor little brain, I was like, okay, you can do this. It's fine. You've done enough work to be okay. And if something bad happens and it hurts your feelings, that's okay too. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
very true. One of the hardest things that I've endured professionally was I did TED Talks in 2015, and when it went into YouTube, one of the very first comments had nothing to do with what I said. They commented purely on my weight.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I've never, I mean, I guess we all have, nobody wants anybody to talk about their weight, whether they're too skinny, they're just right, they're too heavy, like whatever it is. But it was this moment of, I just went up and shared one of the most vulnerable moments, and all you could come back with is something really, really shallow that if you bothered to even engage with what was being said, makes sense. But it
Yeah.
takes a lot to get to that point. That time I think I was like, wow, like you felt like, because it wasn't the first time, doing reality TV. Man, people have a lot of opinions and they think they have the right to pass all kinds of judgment on you. And so I'm
Yeah.
grateful for those experiences. And in coaching, there's a little bit in entrepreneurship, there's this fear of, well, people are paying me for this. TED Talk, nobody paid me for that. I'm not making money off of that. They chose to watch it. That's on them, right? But when people are paying us, if they're coming back and then giving us that negative feedback, we have to then question. And this is where, again, having a group and, accountability, but also a community where you're doing things of like, hey, is this something that's just a personal attack and it's about them? Or is there some validity to this? And what do you see that they might be trying to communicate and maybe not doing a great job communicating?
Yeah.
Because let's be clear, most of the negative feedback we get, people are not doing a great job communicating.
No. And like you said, when it's something that's super personal that has nothing to do with the content that you're providing, is just like, what? Like, what are you even talking? That is a you thing. That's not a me thing. But yeah, it can be tough to like parse out what's valuable feedback. Cause I think it's hard sometimes to get helpful feedback in general, or to be like, what do you guys want? People are like, I don't know. And I'm like, I feel like this isn't it though. So I'm going to try these things. And then, eventually you stumble across something that connects with people. But yeah, it's tough. It's, I think honestly, it's probably one of the scariest things about what I want to do with my business and everything like that. It's just the negative haterade as it's described sometimes. But yeah, so anyway, that was good. That was good. The little rabbit trail we went on there. That was good. Hey, thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to stop and share a very helpful legal resource for small business owners and entrepreneurs. Brittany Rattel, who was also a guest on this podcast, episode 8, I believe, if you want to go check it out. She has a ton of very helpful legal resources and templates on her website that entrepreneurs can take advantage of. She specializes in helping online content creators protect their digital content, and all of her resources are set up to help us with all of those things. So whether it's creating contacts to provide to your clients or to potential vendors, or just protecting your website with effective terms and conditions and privacy policies and that kind of thing, all kinds of options, very reasonable prices, and she always walks people through how to use her legal templates. She provides tutorials that go along with them to help you customize it to your specific business. The link for that is lddy.no/12luy, and that link is also in my show notes because those are a bunch of random letters that don't make sense. How did you end up where you are now? Like, this is one of my favorite things to ask people, like on the entrepreneur journey, is where did you start? Where did you think you were going to go with your life?
How far back are we going?
I mean, like at some point I thought I was going to be a lawyer, and that's not at all what happened, which is totally fine. But, the journey is a little ladybug trail of chaos sometimes, but it always, I think anyway, has a way of working out. So yeah, how did you end up where you are now from where you thought you were going to be?
Well, so I'm a child of trauma. So I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't know that I ever had that's why I was saying, like, how far back do you want to go? Like when I was 11, I thought I was going to be the next Amy Grant. In fact, I was sharing that with a client yesterday, and I'm not, and that's okay. I've gone through the grieving process.
I've worked through it.
I've processed it. We're going to be good. It'll be fine. I don't really sing that well. I can hold a tune, but nobody's going to pay to see me sing. Like, let's just be clear, and that's okay. But yeah, so as a child of trauma, I didn't have the same career aspirations that other people, and I say other people, here's the reality is the more I learn and process, the more I recognize like that's all a narrative that's not actually real.
Yeah.
But I do know, like my husband, oh my goodness, my husband has known since he was 14 or so that he was going to be in aviation, either as a pilot, an engineer, or a mechanic. And he went after that. I have not had that. So I have done lots of crazy odd jobs here and there. I was a nurse's aide at 18. I was in telemarketing. Oh, I'm sure everybody remembers the poor 18 to 25-year-olds back in the late 90s who called people randomly trying to sell them things. I did that. I did photography in a studio. I actually thought about going to grad school or getting a degree and going into plastic surgery. I have a child with some medical needs and also considered audiology. I got a degree in psych because I couldn't get a degree in a medical science, but still wasn't 100% sure where I was going. But I knew I wanted to help people. And so all of that childhood trauma and all of that, as I began to process, people have always told me everything. I'm the person, even when I was a kid, like people would just tell me everything. I've actually been on vacation in other states and random people come up to me in Walmart and ask me to help them make these huge life-changing decisions. And I'm like, I don't even know why you're asking me. And so that said, in 2009, for those who Google and look, my mother became very ill, and I was in a position where I'm an only child and I had to help her. And in the aftermath, I was trying to understand her and to manage how to be around her, and really fell into this massive hole in the community for this issue. And so recognizing that I wasn't the only person going through that, I started a peer support group for adult children of hoarders. And that was 2011. Showed up at the church twice a month, sat there alone for months. So kind of some entrepreneurial of here's a problem. And I don't 100% know, but I'm just not quite enough to say I shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just not quite rational enough to think that I shouldn't try. And so I tried, and it had mixed success. It wasn't a business endeavor; it was filling a need. And over time since 2012, went back, got my master's degree in clinical social work, and started being a clinical social worker. But again, in private practice by myself, working from home, had some really clear things I want to do in my practice. I used to run a practice in grad school. I was a practice manager of a large private practice, and I couldn't understand why I was getting those things done for them, but struggling to do them for myself. When I was in the community trying to meet needs, I had started a life coaching course back, 2014, 2015. And this last year, I decided, you know what, I should finish that and add that, recognizing that a lot of adult children, a lot of people with childhood trauma are in that solopreneur, and that there are just some nuances, especially the internal dialogues of what it means to be successful and whether we have the right to be successful, and hyper responsibility that comes with that. And so that's kind of what's driven me into this, is looking at it like, hey, this is a group of people that I get, and there's some really, significant needs that I'm hearing as well as seeing in my own life, in my own business, and just kind of decided I should just try to do something about that because I have nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's the joke I regularly make too, is like, well, because I didn't have enough going on, I decided to start another podcast and then a nonprofit, or a nonprofit and then podcast. Yeah, I'm like, it's fine. But it's funny when you talk about the children of trauma and having that like hyper responsibility. The only way you see value in yourself is by all the things that you would do and accomplish, usually for other people. But that was I'm a millennial, former talented and gifted child, and so I'm so driven to be exceptional at everything, that it's difficult sometimes to just have fun doing things, because I need to be exceptional or better than other people that are starting from where I am. So one thing that I'm challenging myself with is learning how to play golf, because I'm like, if I had just stuck with some of this stuff,
and I love
could
that
be...
you picked the sport that is the hardest to master.
Oh my God, it's insane.
But it's therapeutically
yes.
great
Yeah.
fodder.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, because I played tennis in high school, and this is the thing. So I got my fulfillment. I played tennis as a freshman and lettered and played varsity tennis as a freshman. So
Wow.
then I was done. I played my freshman year, and
I
that
did
was
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yep, I was like, I was exceptional at a thing. It may be a small country school. It's fine. I still played. I still lettered. I got my jacket as a freshman, and I'm done. But I'm like, man, if I had just like kept playing tennis, just
Yeah.
imagine. So I play for fun now. It's also a lot easier to play than golf by a long shot. But that's what I told myself. I'm like, hey, you need to stick with this. This is going to be a lifelong commitment. You need to take classes at some point. You have to play consistently because it is a very challenging sport for a lot of reasons. But yeah, that's been one of my little, I'm like, okay, you got to stick with something, dude. Like, yeah, it's rough. Recovering from being an exceptional child is like, that's a process.
Yeah, and there's, I think that that's one of the challenges of being an entrepreneur is because we are responsible for everything. It's a natural fit,
Mhm.
but it's also the place that one of the places that can become the biggest pitfall for us because as our businesses grow, even as solopreneurs, sometimes we need to hire additional support. We need to contract. We need to get a virtual assistant. Now, I'm not there yet. I'm hopeful for the day, and I'm okay with not getting too far ahead of myself and being like hyper focused on that of like when it comes. But you said nonprofit. I started and closed a nonprofit. That's something that a lot of people don't do. There's a lot of learning in that of,
Mhm.
hey, I can't be responsible. And in fact, the reason we closed it was I was responsible for too much. And I asked the board, hey, please, I can't do this. And we're not getting enough people in to support. So we need to close. But I think that that's the piece that's hard for entrepreneurs is it's just my responsibility. It's my business. It's my responsibility. But how do we manage a healthy level of responsibility?
Mhm.
When do we say, okay, this just isn't working, or I need to have additional support?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think there's a lot of conversation out there about hustle culture and it's just around the corner
Yes.
and
And
don't give up yet. It's almost there. It's hard work and then it pays off. And it's like when it's to me, it's almost the equivalent of being in an unhealthy relationship where you're like, but when do I know when is enough? And when is it worth still working on? So I feel like that's hard sometimes. Like I've definitely had those moments plenty of times because I also started my business like 6 months before COVID too. So it was like,
oh yeah, that's hard.
oh God, it was insane. Like I told a friend at some point in time, I was like, I am so tired of learning things new and having to adjust my strategy every single day. And sometimes, like I just can't, it's exhausting. But I kept going and here we are, right? But I was like, you don't always know. And sometimes you won't know until it's hindsight either. But I think there's a lot of that conversation is like, just keep going. Entrepreneurship is hard. And it's like, but sometimes you need to adjust your strategy or like you said, just be like, you know what? This isn't fun. It's not fulfilling and it's not even close to accomplishing what I wanted it to. So let's just call it. If it comes back around, like your life coaching, like sometimes that like the course comes back around if it's supposed to, but it's so hard. I think it's tough to like see that kind of stuff until I guess.
Yeah. And again, that's the reason for having a community is
Yeah.
to have somebody else who can say, hey, Kristen, maybe it's time to call a time
Hmm.
of death. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yep.
mean you're a failure. It means time. What's the next idea?
Yeah.
What was working and what can you do next?
Yep. Yeah. You really do need the outside people sometimes to be like, hey buddy, like it's not good. It's not good. It's not, you're
Yeah.
not happy. You're not fulfilled. This is not a fun time for you. Let's just, yep.
And it's an interesting thing. So in the social in the clinical world, so we live close together, but I actually moved 100 miles last year, and I went from a community where it's very, very connected. I knew everybody. I couldn't go anywhere without seeing somebody I know, to a community where, especially because I worked from home and I live outside of town, I was completely anonymous. And one of the stories that I got really stuck in my head is I needed to just see more clients. I needed to see more clients. I need to see more clients because that's how business works. But the reality is, if we're not connected, we have no right to try, there has to be some balance.
Mhm.
And you said hindsight. In hindsight, I look back and I go, I'm so glad I only had 4 clients during that because that's all I could actually invest in somebody else without
Yeah.
completely ruining my mental and physical health.
Yeah.
And if you're an entrepreneur, your number one responsibility, and I will say this, is yourself, because you can't help anybody with anything if you're not taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And even as it like translates into like your personal life and relationships too, it's like if you are stressed out and burned out all the time, because that happens to me again, because I like to take on too much responsibility. But like sometimes I'll tell especially my close friends, I'm like, hey, you know what? Like I am over socialized, over committed, over stressed. I just need a break from like the commitments of relationships management, basically. And they're like, yeah, totally. Just let me know if you need anything, take some space. It's totally fine. I have amazing friends, but it's taking me a long time to get there where I'm just like, okay, like what's happening? I start feeling the pressure, like closing. I'm like, everybody needs something from me all the time. And I'm like, okay, you've put yourself in a situation. But it's a pattern that I'm like, that's what a coach and a therapist is for, you know? I'm like, okay, this keeps happening. But yeah, being able to recognize when that stuff is happening is like, oh, okay. Because I essentially ended up super isolated because of COVID too. So I quit my corporate job in August. And I describe myself as an introvert. I'm very much like, I can be very social. I do a lot of networking. I can do presentations, all that kind of stuff, but I need the recharge time. So I quit my corporate job, and then it was winter, and I also suffer from seasonal depression. And then COVID happened. And I had also traveled a couple times during then too, which I love. Go to Mexico, love to travel. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I get to work from home now. Like, I get a ton of alone time. This is great. And I was like, oh, but you also are a social person. Like, you also like people. You just need to have balance. And so, but it was like 6 or 8 months of just like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm theoretically living my dream. I started my own business. I don't have to work for anybody, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I'm in the deepest depression I've ever been in my entire life. Like, what is going on? Yeah, it was rough, but it's just, the things you learn. So it's like, it seems like this is ideal. And then once I was in it, I was like, no, so then I started like doing a lot of networking and making connections and like building those kinds of relationships. And that helped a ton, because it is, like you said, it's the community and having other people be like, nope, you're good. I cried today too. You're fine. It's okay. This sucks and it's all right. Yeah, no, it's good. I'm having a great time. This is a good conversation, I think. Sometimes you never know where it's going to go until you start.
Yeah. That's what I love about counseling and coaching, is it's never going to be the exact same thing. We have rules and outlines and guidelines, but you never know day to day, client to client, what conversations are going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's happened to me a few times with different clients where we start and we're working on this project. And then it's like, but what about this? And then it like becomes something else entirely. So I'm like, it seems like this is actually what we're here for. But you don't know until you start talking stuff out. So let's see, what's the next question I want to ask you? What are the top 3 things you think business owners need to know about what you do, or like how you can help with the process?
So right now, what I'm doing is the community building. And so the really big piece is to know I'm not an expert in this. It's something that I've developed because I had a need. And it was one of those things where sometimes your need is a void, and you have to be careful about filling the void. But for me, it really was going, okay, who am I and what am I challenged with? And who do I know who's similar, having the same challenges? And how do we create a place and a space where we can connect and do that? And so in the community, Exousia, we're not, I'm not in an expert role. I'm in a role of, this is who I am, this is what my needs are, and I'm inviting you because I think that you potentially are in a very similar space. And the fact of the matter is my belief in that community is that we actually all have the answers. It's not necessarily, and there will be times where we'll recognize like, hey, there's a skill development piece. We don't own this skill. We'll need to learn it. But really the belief that we already know what we need to do, and we already know how to do it. We just need someone who's going to go, hey, how's that thing going? To get us through the days where we're like, ugh, the last thing I want to do is write another marketing copy. The last thing I want to do is update my website. The last thing I want to do is return an email from somebody who's not a fit for me. So the things that we don't enjoy, we need people who are going to go, not bug us, but hey, how's that going? So I think that's the big piece is I'm not in an expert role. I think the other piece would be in coaching, especially executive entrepreneur coaching, is that my role is not to see you as broken. It is to see you as a superstar in development. And to be able to speak at times hard truth. There may, you said, sometimes you get into burnout, you overcommit. So a coach in that coaching scenario doesn't come and say, I don't think you should do that. The coach then comes in and says, how does this align with your other goals? Where does this fit? So it's not a right wrong. It's more an exploration to help the entrepreneur, you know what really matters and focus. In fact, I've changed my lock screen on my phone that says, do know what matters most and focus on that. And so that's really the goal of the coach, is to help you really, really know what matters most. And in some seasons, even as entrepreneurs, what matters most is our health. It may be our relationships. I know one thing that I've been really working hard on is I don't do my business on weekends. And I know my dear brother-in-law gave me the E-Myth Revisited, which is an amazing book. And there's a lot of people who will tell you, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to work 50, 60, 80 hours a week. No, simply no, because 40 hours in a traditional job drains me. Like you, I'm a social introvert. I love people. People love to be around me, but I need boundaries. I need time to recharge.
Yeah.
And so the coach ends up, not in an expert role, but more of a question role of where are you at? What's important to you? And then challenging, have you thought how this aligns? Third piece that I think is most important. I think just the fact that, and this is more me personally as a person, and my friend, who's actually one of my earliest people involved in the community, said, you know what, there's just some people that I couldn't be accountable to. That there's this, like, they're too perfect, or they get bossy, they get rude. She's like, I know that if I come to you and I say I didn't get it done, you're not going to judge me. You're not going to be disappointed in me. You're going to go, okay, tell me what's happening. And you're going to, I'm the person, this is kind of what I do professionally in clinical work, but I think it's what I do in coaching work as well, is I'm not afraid to sit in the mud puddles. I'm going to encourage you not to stay there, but I'm absolutely down with sitting in a mud puddle and encouraging you, like, hey, what's next? When you decide that the thing is dead, we're calling it and we're in the mud puddle. Or maybe we're burying it. Like, okay, throw another pile of dirt in. Like, it's done. We got to move on. I'm okay in those spaces. And I know a lot of people get really uncomfortable in those spaces of these, negative energies and grief, loss, frustration. I don't necessarily love them, but I've learned to be very good at tolerating being in them with other people.
Yeah, I think that's because it kind of goes back to the like the hustle culture stuff, where it's like toxic positivity, and it's just like, just be more positive and it'll be, and it's like, sometimes you just gotta, like you said, sit in a mud puddle. I call it being in the darkness. And sometimes you just, because if you don't acknowledge that it's happening, it's going to get worse. Like, if you try to pretend and smile and positive and mask your way out of it, it's still there. You're still having feelings about something. And the more you try to bury it, the worse it's going to get. I can tell you from my own person. There's probably some healthy people out there that are like, I just function fine. But like, for those of us, like you said, with trauma and negative patterns and all that kind of stuff, like, you just have to acknowledge it sometimes. And then, like you said, like someone that can give you the accountability and the right kind of push, that's like, okay, so like, what are the next steps? Like, this super sucks and I am so sorry. And I feel for you. And I get that you're going through a dark time. What do you need? Also, that's a thing that has kind of come up recently, is asking people what they actually need, what kind of support they're looking for. Like, do you want someone to just sit with you here in the dark? Do you want me to help provide solutions? Do you want someone to just tell you it's going to be okay? Like, and I feel like for me, that helps sometimes too, because it helps me like go, okay, what do I actually need? What's happening right now? Do I just need to like feel my feelings and have a wine night with my best friend? Or do I need somebody to ask me questions to help me like get myself out of the thing? Yeah. So anyway, I digress. It's nice. That's a special skill that, like you said, not a lot of people have, because they're uncomfortable with other people's uncomfortableness. And so anyway, thank you for being you, because people need you. And apparently strangers in the grocery store know too. They're like, oh, this one.
Yeah. Little old men in Montana are going to ask me about housing decisions.
Oh my God. That's so much pressure.
Like, well, the good news is I actually do know a little bit about federal housing programs for seniors, and those are relevant in any state. So
Yeah, that's amazing. They can just like sense it. They're like, oh, she knows things. She'll help
Yeah,
me.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure somebody has like a black light tattoo, the white tattoo on my forehead, and that these people have some special vision to see these things, because it's not all the time, but it's usually something that I have some knowledge about. I'm like, I just don't even remotely understand how or why this person chose me.
Yeah. That's like some of the, I believe in the universe. And in your case, it's, God putting people probably where they are. But that's like it's the strange connections that like just do not make sense. Sometimes you're like, that's just the universe is like, dude, this guy really needs some help. Like, just bear with me. I know we're in the grocery store, but if you can just answer some questions for him, that's all we need. Thanks, Cece. Go on your day. Yeah.
But it's
Carry on.
fulfilling. So,
Yes.
you're like,
Yep.
oh, look, I was able to do something that mattered today.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Brightens your day in a different kind of way. Hey, thanks for listening so far. Just wanted to stop and tell you about Monday.com, which is one of my favorite task and project management systems to use. If you've been looking for a way to better coordinate your tasks and project management with your team members or with clients and customers, Monday.com is a great way to do that. You can set up individual boards for each client. You can share and collaborate across multiple boards with your team members, upload files and contracts and information that you want to keep handy, all kinds of stuff. So it's a great way to manage a lot of moving pieces and a lot of tasks across multiple different resources. The link for that is mondaycom.grsm.io/catalyst. And of course, the link will be in the show notes too if you want to check it out later. So when people, this I think is super important to talk about too, especially when it comes to like coaching or counseling of any kind too. So when people are looking for someone like you, how do they know, or what do they need to know to make sure that one, the person knows what they're talking about, and two, like what are some questions that they might ask to make sure that you're a good fit for, because I can tell you, I've had some therapists, and only through the course of having therapists do I now know how I would handle like a meeting and add the questions that I would ask. But I'm like, I feel like they should know anyway. But yeah, like what kinds of things could you ask, or how would they know that you actually are good at what you do?
Well, I'm going to do the whole thing that everybody hates, but I'm going to say the number one thing is trust your gut.
Oh, no,
If there is anything about your interaction with a potential coach, or especially a potential counselor, like I don't want to ever speak poorly of counselors, but if you have a bad feeling about an interaction with a counselor, trust yourself. There's actually a clinical term for it. It's called congruence. When a person is what they say they are, you're going to have peace. You're going to have this, it may still be scary, but if you feel nauseous, if you're on edge talking to a coach, and you didn't feel that way before, trust that 100%. That is a major warning sign. One of the things as a therapist, and this is true as coaching as well, is so I'm trained in several different modalities, but I'm very what I call directive. So if you're looking for someone to come in and talk to just kind of shoot the breeze and defer that, I can do that. But what I do really, really well is challenge and encourage, and I do require homework. I want people to get better. I want to work myself out of business. I want my clients to be able to take and develop enough skills and enough self-reliance that they can eventually be independent. And that's true in solopreneurship as well as in a clinical setting of, when we build a community, we're not looking for an end the same way, because we're just recognizing that we need each other. But if you're actually going into a coaching and you're in a period, I'm actually in the process of looking for a coach myself right now for something very specific that I'm recognizing I have the skills, I have some encouragement, I've set deadlines, and it's something that I think that I just need some more accountability from somebody who specifically knows. And so what do I look for? Well, I want to know that there's information out there that they've done what they said they've done. Like I said, I've started support groups. I started a nonprofit. I recently published the first resource of its kind for adult children who have parents who hoard. People want to know, like, can she actually produce? Well, yeah, go look. If a coach is encouraging you, they can do that, and they don't have things that they've produced or testimonials. And this is hard in mental health. I can't ask for a testimonial. I can't post a review in the clinical world. That's unethical. And so it's kind of this weird conundrum to have those two pieces and be like, oh, my coaching clients can do that, my clinical clients cannot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, even when you're looking for a counselor, trust your gut and just kind of know, like, what are you looking for? And you may not always know, And if you immediately after do a session, I do 15-minute consultations with anybody, a phone consultation, whether it's coaching or clinical. Let's just have a chat, find out what you're looking to do, see if it feels like, we can chat easily. We don't need to be best friends. I don't have to agree with all your political views. All of those things are irrelevant, but we need to be able to communicate pretty equally, and have some sense of comfort. Ironically, I do the same thing of congruence in mental health. Like, not everybody's safe, and it's okay to say, hey, this isn't someone I can actually help. And to say, hey, let me refer you to somebody who's going to actually be able to do the best good for you. And the same thing in the coaching world. There are going to be people, who are going to come in. I'm going to be like, like, I can coach you generally. I can encourage you, but this isn't something where I actually would be a good fit because I don't have experience with it. And so I won't know how to help you measure. And I'm totally okay with not, I like being wrong. I don't like being wrong. I'm okay being wrong. I tell my kids that all the time. I don't know everything, and I'm wrong more than I like. And I'm willing most of the time to admit it. Most of the time.
Yeah. My ex that I help him run his business, it's fine. But like, we joke because we've known each other for 12 years, so we know each other better than most people do. And my joke is always that I have an opinion about everything. So we'll be like in a meeting and he's like, I can hear the opinion, just say, I can hear your little brain, but yeah, you need that. Yeah, I don't like to be wrong either. I get what you're saying. It's like, I like to be like, oh, I learned something new, but I don't love the concept of being wrong because I'd like to be perfect. So that's my talented and gifted childhood there for you.
I'm going to challenge you. You can let that go. It's
good.
actually very freeing. You can achieve more when you're not striving to achieve, but you'll get.
I know, it's right. It's a work in progress. Being aware of it is one of the first.
That's a huge win. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is honestly, TikTok therapy has been so helpful. Like, my best friend and I started getting onto TikTok first, and then I was like, dude, I'm serious. Like, cause she was more like on Instagram and Reels and stuff. I was like, I'm learning so much stuff that's helpful to just be like, oh, one, I'm not the only one. And two, there's a thing, like, there's like neurodivergency. You said that earlier. That's something that I literally just learned about like in the last 6 months, where I was like, oh, I'm not defective. This is the real thing. I might also have ADHD, but that's for another day. Yeah.
And I would refer you out because that's not my specialty.
Yeah, I know. I need to, that's why I'm like, we were talking about finding coaches or therapists who specialize in neurodivergency, because a lot of the time it doesn't feel like a good fit for me because they're trying to make me be in a normal box. And I'm like, that's just not how my brain works. But it took me a long time to figure out that that's actually what it was. So yeah. Anyway, that was great. Super good advice. I think that trusting your gut, trusting your instincts when it comes to finding people that you're working with, whether it's just like a coach, counselor, therapist, or anybody else, trust your gut. Cause I've definitely had that with clients or potential clients before, where I'm like, I cannot help this person. There's a difference between helping someone create structure out of chaos and someone that has no idea what they want to do. Like, and I can't, somebody that's changing their mind all the time, I'm like, I can't help you. You need somebody else. But yeah, trust your guts. I think something that like sticks out for me too with that is I start to feel super defensive. And if I'm feeling defensive, it means that they're pushing me in a way that I'm not comfortable. This is not going to go well. Like with my coach that I have an established relationship with, when I start to feel defensive, I'm like, she's probably right. This is very annoying. But somebody who doesn't know me, who's like coming at me and like asking me a ton of super personal questions, or like giving me, I just had somebody do this on a Facebook comment the other day. I was talking about how I was struggling with marketing stuff. And she's like, well, it's hard because it's a mindset thing. So if you think it's hard, it's because you're making it hard. And I'm like, no, like I have other mindset. It's hard because I don't know how to do it yet. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so somebody that's like basically diagnosing me without actually knowing anything about me, those things will just like, I just get super defensive. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. I'm like, nope, hard no. So yeah, trust your guts. So yeah, let's see. Last couple bits. What advice would you give fellow business owners when it comes to running their businesses? Like, what are a couple of things that you've learned along the way?
I think I've already mentioned it, but I think that just like our fingerprints aren't identical, our businesses aren't going to be identical. And that doesn't, within the counseling business, within coaches, that what works for one person, and
Hmm.
and that is on so many levels. That could be your business practices, it could be the number of hours you commit, it could be how public or private you want to be. Don't let anybody tell you who you should be or what your business should be. The whole, at least for me, so I'm going to say for me, and I hear this from other people as well, the point of solopreneurship, being in business by yourself for yourself, is because you didn't fit well somewhere else. So, and I know this is incredibly hard. This is that mindset piece. Don't carry somebody else's rules into your business. One of the questions I love to ask everybody, ask my kids, they hate it. Who says that's what's happening? Who says it has to be that way? Who says you failed? Who says you'll never be successful? Who says you need to work on Saturday? Show me who these people are, and show me then, if you can, if they're happy, if they're successful, if they're balanced, if they're pathologically stressed out and, clinically needing mental health and physical health care. So just know that your business doesn't have to make 6 digits in a year. I mean, obviously we all want to be financially stable, but don't let benchmarks that other people set determine. So it's one of the biggest things I've learned in the last year is, so I had 4 clients, and in the mental health world, if you work in an agency as a new therapist, you probably see 60 clients because you're constantly going. And so when you're seeing 4 clients, it seems like you're not a very good therapist. Why am I only seeing 4 clients? Well, that's all I actually could manage when I didn't have a support system of my own to balance out the pouring into other people. So getting to the point where I'm like, no, it's okay if I only work 3 days a week with clients. That's what's healthy for me. It's okay if I don't work Saturday or Sunday. It's okay if I take a vacation. I plan for this. And so I think that's like my biggest advice to people is recognize what's going to make you feel balanced and healthy. I don't say happy, because happiness can be fleeting, but healthy. Can you put your head on the pillow at night knowing that you gave everything that you had to give, and whether it turned out for good or worse in the moment, you had a good day of work, that we're designed for that. And
Yeah.
that looks different. For me, some days that's 4 hours, some days it's 12. I work on not doing 12-hour days very often.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's perfect. Cause that's such good advice in general for just being a human. Like, you don't have to be what someone else says you have to be, period. And I wish I had known that like much earlier in my life. Cause I've always been a bit of a rebel. And I'm like, if I just figured out that I don't have to like fight against what everyone else is telling me, like I could just do what I don't know, it's like the Yeah, no, that's great. Do you have any other, like any resources or systems or programs that you've used that you feel like would have been super helpful earlier on in your journey that you can tell people about?
Other than counseling, I mean, like, let's be clear.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
Even if you think you're pretty well, you said, healthy people,
Yeah.
as a therapist, I'm really, really offset by people who say they're healthy. All the people who had happy childhoods, I'm like, no, really, like.
Yeah.
So anybody who's listening right now and they're like, no, I had a happy childhood, I am so, so, so incredibly happy for you and glad that you were blessed that way. But generally that's like my thing of like, okay, you don't know yourself very well yet. So,
That's funny.
I don't have a whole lot of resources out there right now, in the sense of the coaching world. Things that I've found helpful, again, get yourself into a coaching group, whether that's, like I've got the Christian women's group, the Exousia, whether there's other groups obviously out there. I'm part of Polka Dot Powerhouse for Women. And I'm so bummed I haven't been able to do any of the in-person yet, but, just having a network of other women who are in the community and, seeing what they're doing, celebrating their successes, mourning their losses or setbacks, is a huge thing. In the clinical world, like I said, I do have some resources I've created that are available on my website. It's a very niche thing. And when I say that, that doesn't mean that there's nobody interested. But I created a workbook for adult children who have a parent who hoards. And it's the only resource of its kind that goes through all the various factors that are involved in parental hoarding and intervention. And so that's available for free on my website, downloadable PDF workbook to really go through. It's almost like financial planning for retirement, but planning for parental intervention in hoarding. And again, it's really the only resource out there at this time directed to adult children who have a parent who hoards.
No, that's great. Super helpful. I think there's a lot of people that are going to end up, maybe it's not necessarily described as medical or like clinically hoarding, but there's definitely a lot of parents who have a lot of things that their kids are going to have to deal with at some point in the future. My mom always, she's like super paranoid. She's like, I just like, you guys are gonna have to go through all this stuff. And I'm like, she's like, I'm gonna go through everything, so you don't have to do it when I die. I'm like, okay, mom, like it's okay. She's not a hoarder, but she just has stuff like knickknacks
Yeah.
and things that she's collected over the last 70 years. And it's like some sentimentalism. And then I think also from being raised from so she's like a super boomer, basically. I call her, like, she was born in 47, had my brother and I late in life, so like late 30s, but she has, so it's like the not being able to get rid of things because her parents were raised in the midst of a couple of wars. And so like there's like the different like you can't throw, we reuse Ziploc bags and that kind of stuff. So that's like a whole thing. Anyway, this super helpful resource, like you said, like it's super niche, but I think it is still valuable in a lot of ways for a lot of people, I think. So check it out. Okay, cool. I'm super excited. Great episode. Super good conversation. How can we find you on the internet? How can people support you, stalk you on Facebook, etc.?
So I have a professional page on Facebook, which is Ceci Garrett. That's CECI Garrett, 2 R's and 2 T's. And then my website is, in fact, cecigarrett.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well. Not as active over there. I'm a mid 40s something. So most of my social media engagement is Facebook. I'm sorry to all of you. I'm thinking about TikTok. I've done a little bit of vlogging through my blog at cecigarrett.com and putting things on YouTube. But yeah, so that's where you can best find me. I'm also on, if you are looking for a therapist, go over to Psychology Today. I'm listed there under Cecilia, which is my legal name, Garrett.
Your fancy name, yeah.
My fancy name that nobody, including my mother, calls me. So if you call me Cecilia Garrett, I will know that you don't know me.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this is a stranger. Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. No, it's been great. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will be in touch with you soon, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks so much for listening today. This was a great episode, and I'm sure you will appreciate the tips and insights from today. If you want to connect further with our guests, you can find the contact information, social media links, etc., any of the freebies in the show notes from today's episode. Please show some love to our guests and like, follow, and subscribe their content if you connected with them. And also don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. Also, if you drop a juicy review, that's always cool too.